The conference room smelled like stale coffee and expensive perfume when my wife told a room full of strangers that I'd be a terrible father. "He's not capable of putting anyone else first," Claire said, her voice steady and certain. She sat at the mahogany table, surrounded by our families and the mediator we'd hired to help us navigate our impending divorce. Having a child with him would be a mistake. He's too selfish, too focused on his work. A child deserves better. The mediator, a woman named Patricia Cole with kind eyes and graying hair, nodded sympathetically. My mother-in-law, Diane, reached across to squeeze Claire's hand. My own parents sat frozen on the other side of the table, their faces pale with shock. I didn't move, didn't speak. Just kept my hands folded on the table in front of me, my face arranged into something that probably looked like resignation. Inside, my heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat, but I'd learned over the past 3 months how to hide that kind of pain. "Thomas," Patricia said gently, turning to me. "Do you want to respond to that?" I looked at Claire, really looked at her. The woman I'd married 6 years ago, who'd promised to love me through everything. The woman who'd shared my bed, my dreams, my life. The woman who was now sitting across from me, systematically destroying my character in front of the people who mattered most. She didn't even have the decency to look uncomfortable. "No," I said quietly, "I don't have anything to say." Claire's expression flickered surprise, maybe, or disappointment that I wasn't fighting back. She'd probably expected me to defend myself, to argue, to give her ammunition for the narrative she was building. But I'd stopped defending myself weeks ago. Around the same time, I'd discovered what she was really doing, who she was really doing it with. "Thomas has always been very passive," Claire continued, as if my silence proved her point. "He doesn't engage emotionally. He doesn't fight for things that matter. A child needs a parent who shows up, who's present. He's never been that person." My father started to speak. "Now wait just a minute." But I caught his eye and shook my head slightly. He subsided, confused but obedient. "I think we should take a break," Patricia suggested, sensing the tension. "Give everyone a chance to process." The room emptied slowly. Claire left first, her mother trailing behind her with sympathetic murmurs. My parents lingered, clearly wanting to talk to me, but I gestured toward the door. "I need a minute alone," I told them. "Son, you can't just let her say those things about you," my father said, his voice rough with anger. "It's fine, Dad. Really. I'll talk to you later." After they left, I sat alone in the conference room, staring at the empty chair where Claire had been sitting. The chair where she'd looked at me with such certainty, such conviction that I was fundamentally flawed. What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd been recording everything. Every mediation session, every conversation, every text message. All of it stored safely on a device that even my lawyer didn't know about yet. What she didn't know was that 3 months ago, I'd hired a private investigator. Not because I wanted to catch her cheating. I already knew about that. I'd known for 5 months before I hired anyone. No, I hired someone to document everything, to build a case so airtight that when this all came to court, there would be no question about who was telling the truth. What she didn't know was that the passive, disengaged husband she'd just described to everyone. He'd been quietly documenting her affair with my former best friend, her plans to claim I was abusive, her scheme to take everything in the divorce and leave me with nothing. What she didn't know was that I'd been 10 steps ahead this entire time. I pulled out my phone and sent a text to my real lawyer, not the one Claire thought I'd hired, but the one I'd been working with in secret for months. Helena Carver, one of the best family law attorneys in the state. She just claimed I'd be a terrible father in front of the mediator and both families. It's all recorded. When do we move forward? The response came immediately. 2 more weeks. Let her keep talking. The more she says now, the worse it looks later. I put my phone away and stood up, straightening my tie. Through the window, I could see Claire in the parking lot, talking animatedly on her phone. Probably to him. Probably telling him how well the mediation had gone, how I hadn't even defended myself. She had no idea what was coming. I thought about the flash drive in my safety deposit box, the one containing thousands of text messages between Claire and my former best friend, Kyle Anderson. Messages that went back 2 years, 2 years of them planning their future together while I worked late, providing for the life Claire claimed to want. I thought about the financial records I'd compiled, every secret credit card Claire had opened in my name, every gift she'd bought for Kyle with money from our joint account, every lie about where the money was going, home repairs that never happened, medical bills that didn't exist, investments in her friend's business that was really just Kyle's pocket. I thought about the recordings I'd made, Claire talking to her mother about how she'd convince everyone I was mentally unstable, Claire laughing with Kyle about how easy it was to manipulate me, Claire planning to file a restraining order based on completely fabricated abuse claims, just to get me out of the house. And I thought about the one thing Claire had said today that was actually, genuinely true. A child deserved better. A child deserved better than a mother who would use them as a weapon. Better than parents who lied and manipulated and destroyed each other. Better than growing up in the middle of this toxic battlefield. Which is why I'd made the hardest decision of my life 3 months ago, when I first learned Claire was pregnant. The baby she was carrying wasn't mine. I'd known almost immediately. The timeline didn't work. I'd been out of town for a medical conference during the window when she must have conceived. A conference I could prove I'd attended, with hotel receipts and colleague testimony and presentation records. But Claire didn't know I knew. She'd been planning to pass the baby off as mine, to use the pregnancy to trap me in the marriage or extract better divorce terms. I'd overheard her on the phone with Kyle, panicking about what to do, eventually deciding that claiming the baby was mine was the safest bet. He'll never question it, she'd told Kyle. He's too trusting, too stupid. I'd stood in my own hallway, listening to my wife call me stupid, and something inside me had crystallized, hardened. I'd spent 6 years trying to make Claire happy, trying to be the husband she wanted, trying to prove I was worthy of her love. No more. I walked out of the conference room and found my parents waiting in the lobby. My mother's eyes were red from crying. "Thomas, sweetheart, we need to talk about what she said in there." "I know, Mom, but not now. Trust me, okay? Just trust me a little while longer." "We do trust you," my father said firmly. "But son, you need to fight back. You can't let her paint you as some kind of monster." "I'm not a monster," I said calmly, "and soon everyone will know that. Just give me 2 more weeks." They looked at each other, confused but willing to wait. 2 weeks, my mother repeated. "Then you explain everything? Then everything becomes clear." "I promise." I drove home alone, to the apartment I'd been renting since Claire kicked me out of our house 3 months ago. The apartment was small and mostly empty. I'd only taken the bare minimum when I left, wanting to avoid any accusations that I'd stolen marital property. Inside, I made coffee and sat at my laptop, reviewing the documents Helena had prepared. The divorce petition, the custody challenge, the restraining order against Claire, not from her. The financial disclosure showing every penny she'd taken, the evidence of her affair, the proof that the baby wasn't mine. All of it organized, documented, undeniable. In 2 weeks, we'd file everything at once. We'd skip the mediation, go straight to court, and present a judge with evidence so overwhelming that Claire wouldn't have a leg to stand on. In 2 weeks, she'd discover that the passive, disengaged husband she'd underestimated had actually been the smartest person in the room all along. I pulled up the recording from today's mediation and listened to Claire's voice again. "He's not capable of putting anyone else first." She was wrong about that. I was putting someone else first. I was putting the truth first, justice first, my own dignity and future first. Maybe that made me selfish. Or maybe it just made me someone who'd finally learned that you couldn't set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. My phone buzzed. A text from Kyle, forwarded to me by the investigator who'd tapped into his phone records. She says he didn't even fight back. This is going to be easier than we thought. I smiled grimly. Let them think it was easy. Let them think they were winning. People who thought they were winning got careless. They said things they shouldn't. They left evidence lying around. And I'd been collecting every piece of it. There was a quote I'd read somewhere, something about revenge being a dish best served cold. But this wasn't really revenge. Revenge implied I was doing something wrong, something vindictive. This was justice. This was protection. This was making absolutely certain that when the dust settled, the truth was the only thing left standing. I opened a new document and started writing. Not legal briefs or evidence summaries, but a letter. To the child Claire was carrying. The child who wasn't mine, but who deserved to know the truth someday. Dear baby, I wrote. By the time you read this, you'll probably be old enough to ask questions about why your parents aren't together. Your mother will tell you her version of the story. She'll probably say I abandoned you both, that I was cruel or selfish or incapable of love. I want you to know the truth, not because I need you to pick sides, but because everyone deserves to know where they came from and why things happened the way they did. I wrote for hours, documenting everything, not with anger or bitterness, but with clarity, facts, dates, evidence. I wrote it all down, saved it in an encrypted file, and stored it in a place where someday, if that child ever wanted answers, they could find them. Because Claire was right about one thing: a child deserved better. They deserved the truth. They deserved parents who were honest, even when honesty was hard. And they deserved a life built on reality, not the fantasy Claire was constructing. Outside my window, the city lights flickered on as evening fell. Somewhere out there, Claire was probably celebrating her victory today, probably planning her next move in the chess game she thought we were playing. She didn't realize the game was already over. She'd just been too busy moving her pieces to notice that I'd been setting up checkmate this whole time. 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks of playing the role of the defeated, passive husband. 2 more weeks of letting her think she was winning. Then everything would change. I finished my coffee, closed my laptop, and allowed myself one moment of satisfaction. Not because I wanted to destroy Claire. Despite everything, I didn't hate her. I just wanted to be free of her. Free of the lies, the manipulation, the constant feeling that I was somehow failing at being human. I wanted my life back. The life I'd had before I met Claire, when I was just Thomas Brennan, a good doctor, a decent person, someone who hadn't yet learned that love could be weaponized. And in 2 weeks, I'd get that life back. In 2 weeks, the woman who'd told everyone I'd be a terrible father would have to explain to a judge why she'd lied about everything else. In 2 weeks, justice would arrive. I just had to wait a little longer. The first time I suspected something was wrong was 14 months before the mediation session. Claire had started coming home later from her book club meetings, always slightly flushed, her hair messier than when she'd left. How was book club? I'd ask, and she'd give vague answers about the novel they'd discussed, never quite meeting my eyes. I didn't want to be that husband, the suspicious, controlling type who questioned his wife's every move. So I ignored the small voice in my head that said something was off. I told myself I was being paranoid, that long hours at the hospital were making me see problems where none existed. Then Kyle started showing up more often. Kyle Anderson had been my best friend since medical school. We'd survived organic chemistry together, stayed up all night studying for boards, celebrated when we both matched to good residency programs. He was the best man at my wedding. I'd trusted him with everything. Claire called, he'd say casually, showing up at our house on a Saturday afternoon. Said you were working and she needed help moving some furniture. It seemed innocent. Claire had always been friendly with Kyle. The 3 of us had dinner together at least once a month. It was natural that she'd call him for help when I was busy at the hospital. Except I wasn't always working when Kyle showed up. Sometimes I was right there in the house, in my office, and Claire would call Kyle anyway. Thomas is busy with paperwork, she'd tell him. I didn't want to bother him. I should have questioned it then. Should have wondered why my wife preferred to ask my best friend for help rather than her own husband. But I was tired. Residency at a major hospital meant 12-hour shifts, night calls, endless emergencies. When I was home, I wanted peace, not conflict. So I let it slide. Over and over, I let it slide. The night I found out for certain, I'd come home early from the hospital. My shift had been covered at the last minute, another doctor's family emergency. I'd called Claire to tell her I was coming home, but got no answer. Our house was in a quiet suburban neighborhood, all perfect lawns and white picket fences. The American dream made manifest. I'd bought it for Claire 3 years into our marriage, stretching our finances to afford the mortgage because she'd said she needed space, needed to feel like we were building something permanent. I pulled into the driveway at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday and saw Kyle's car parked on the street. Nothing unusual about that. Kyle visited sometimes. Maybe Claire had invited him for dinner and forgotten to mention it. But when I walked in through the garage entrance, the house was dark except for a soft glow coming from upstairs, from our bedroom. I stood in the kitchen, my heart suddenly pounding, telling myself there was an innocent explanation. Claire and Kyle were friends. Maybe she was showing him the new paint color we'd chosen for the bedroom. Maybe they were looking at something on her computer. Maybe I was about to walk upstairs and find nothing wrong. I climbed the stairs quietly, not sneaking exactly, just not announcing my presence. The bedroom door was slightly open. I could hear voices, Claire's laugh, breathy and warm. Kyle's deeper voice saying something I couldn't make out. I should have announced myself then. Should have called out, "Hey, I'm home early!" But something stopped me. Some instinct that knew once I opened that door, everything would change. I stood in the hallway for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. Then I gently pushed the door open wider. They weren't in bed. That was the first thing I registered. Claire was sitting on the edge of our bed, fully clothed, and Kyle was standing near the window. Nothing overtly wrong, nothing I could point to and say, "Aha," but the way they jumped when they saw me, the guilt written so clearly on both their faces, the way Claire immediately stood up, smoothing her shirt, her cheeks flushed. "Thomas, you're home early." My shift was covered. I looked at Kyle, who couldn't meet my eyes. "What's going on?" "Nothing," Claire said quickly. Kyle was just helping me move some boxes in the attic. We came down to take a break. It was a reasonable explanation. Plausible. I could have chosen to believe it. But I'd seen the way Kyle was looking at my wife, the way she was looking at him. And I knew. "Okay," I said. "Kyle, I think you should go." "Yeah, of course. I'll just..." He moved toward the door, still not looking at me. "Kyle," I said, and he stopped. "Don't come back." Claire started to protest. "Thomas, that's not fair. Kyle was just helping." "Don't come back," I repeated, looking at my best friend. Former best friend. Ever. He left without another word. Claire and I stood in our bedroom, the space between us suddenly feeling like miles instead of feet. "Nothing happened," she said. "I swear, Thomas, nothing happened. But something is happening. Isn't it?" She didn't answer right away. Just looked at me with this expression I couldn't quite read. Defiance mixed with something that might have been shame. "I don't know what you think you saw. I saw enough. Are you in love with him?" The question hung in the air between us. Claire's face went through several expressions, shock, anger, defensiveness, before settling on something that looked almost like relief. "I don't know," she said finally. "Maybe. I don't know." That honesty, at least, was something. I sat down on the bed, feeling suddenly exhausted. "How long?" "Nothing has happened, Thomas. We're not..." "How long have you had feelings for him?" She was quiet for a long time. A few months. Maybe longer. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. I wanted to be angry. Wanted to yell, to demand answers, to fight for my marriage, but all I felt was tired. Bone-deep tired. "What do you want to do?" I asked. "I don't know. I love you, Thomas." "I do. But She trailed off. "But you love him too." "I don't know if it's love. I just know that when I'm with him, I feel alive. When I'm with you, I feel safe, comfortable, but not alive." safe and comfortable. After 6 years of marriage, that's what I'd become. A safe, comfortable presence in her life. Not exciting, not passionate, just there. "Do you want a divorce?" I asked. "No. I don't think so. I just need time to figure things out." I nodded slowly. "Okay. But Kyle stays away. That's not negotiable." "Okay." That night, we slept in the same bed, carefully not touching. In the morning, we had breakfast together like nothing had happened. Claire kissed me goodbye when I left for the hospital, and I kissed her back, both of us performing the rituals of marriage while something essential between us had shattered. I should have filed for divorce then, should have recognized that marriage was over, but I didn't want to give up. I'd made vows, for better or worse, in sickness and in health. I wanted to believe we could fix this, so I tried harder. I cut back my hours at the hospital where I could. I planned date nights. I asked Claire about her day and actually listened to her answers. I became the attentive husband I should have been all along, and for a few months it seemed to work. Claire smiled more. We laughed together. We had sex again, not with the passion of our early years, but with a comfortable intimacy that felt sustainable. I thought we were healing. I was wrong. 3 months after I'd found Kyle in our bedroom, I came home to find Claire on the phone in the kitchen. She didn't hear me come in. She was too focused on her conversation. "I miss you too," she was saying, her voice soft. "But we have to be careful. Thomas is trying so hard and I feel terrible about it. But I can't stop thinking about you." I stood in the doorway, frozen. She continued talking, unaware of my presence. I know we said we'd stop, but it's so hard when he's right there and I want to be with you instead. Sometimes I wish he'd just, I don't know, make it easy for both of us and leave. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. Not to confront her, not to file for divorce, but to document everything. I walked back out to my car as quietly as I'd entered. Drove to a coffee shop and sat there for 2 hours, my hands shaking around my cup, my mind racing. Claire wasn't going to stop. She'd promised she would, and maybe she'd meant it in the moment, but she couldn't. She didn't want to, and I couldn't keep living like this, trying to win back a wife who didn't want to be won. But I also couldn't just walk away and let her control the narrative. Couldn't let her and Kyle paint me as the bad guy, the workaholic husband who neglected his wife until she had no choice but to find comfort elsewhere. So I started gathering evidence. I installed a recording app on my phone and started documenting our conversations. I hired a private investigator to follow Claire, not because I needed proof of the affair anymore, but because I needed dates, times, specific evidence that would hold up in court. I opened my own bank account and started diverting my paychecks there, leaving just enough in our joint account to cover household expenses. I made copies of all our financial records, all our important documents, everything that proved what we owned and owed. And I waited. I waited while Claire continued seeing Kyle, thinking she was being discreet. I waited while she opened credit cards in my name to buy him gifts. I waited while she told her friends I was emotionally distant, setting up the narrative for when she finally asked for a divorce. I waited and documented everything, building a case so thorough that when the time came, there would be no question about what had really happened. It took 4 months before Claire finally asked for the divorce. We were having dinner, a rare night when we were both home, both making an effort to pretend everything was normal. "Thomas," she said, setting down her fork, "we need to talk." I knew what was coming. I'd known for months, but I let her say it. "I think we should separate, maybe work toward a divorce. This isn't working. We're not happy." "I'm willing to try counseling," I said, even though I knew it was pointless. But I needed her to be the one who refused. Needed to document that I'd tried everything. "I don't think counseling will help. We want different things. We've grown apart. It's nobody's fault. It just is. Is there someone else?" She had the grace to look uncomfortable. "No. This isn't about anyone else. This is about us not being right for each other anymore." It was a lie, of course. But I nodded, like I believed her. Okay. If that's what you want. She looked surprised. Really? You're not going to fight for us? Claire, I've been fighting for us. For months. If you're done, then I'm not going to force you to stay. Thank you for understanding. Understanding. As if I understood anything about how she could look me in the eye and lie so smoothly. That night, she slept in the guest room. In the morning, she asked me to move out. I think it would be easier if you found an apartment, just temporarily, while we figure out the logistics. I'll keep paying the mortgage until we sell the house. I agreed without argument. Packed my essentials, rented a small apartment across town, and moved out within a week. Claire probably thought she'd won, that I was making it easy for her. She had no idea I was making it easy for my lawyers. Every text message she sent Kyle from our house using our Wi-Fi was logged by the investigator's software. Every credit card purchase was documented. Every time she told someone I was abusive or negligent or a terrible husband, my recording app captured it. I was building an evidence file so comprehensive that no mediator, no judge, no jury would believe her lies. And then, 2 months after I moved out, Claire told me she was pregnant. The text came on a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing patient charts. Thomas, I need to talk to you. Can you come to the house tonight? I stared at those words for a long moment, my stomach knotting. Claire and I had barely spoken since I moved out 8 weeks ago. Our communication had been limited to logistics, bills to pay, mail to forward, scheduling times for me to pick up belongings I'd left behind. This felt different, the formality of it. The request to come to the house instead of meeting somewhere neutral. What time? I replied. 7? I finished my shift on autopilot, my mind spinning through possibilities. Had she found out I was documenting everything? Had she talked to a lawyer who told her she needed to be careful? Had Kyle proposed? I drove to the house, our house, though it hadn't felt like mine in months, and parked in the driveway. It was early October, and the leaves were starting to turn. Claire had always loved fall. She'd wanted to get married in October, but we'd ended up with a June wedding instead because the venue we wanted wasn't available. She answered the door before I could knock, like she'd been watching for me. She looked pale, tired, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. "Come in," she said. The house smelled like the vanilla candles Claire always burned. Everything looked exactly as I'd left it. The furniture we'd picked out together, the photos on the walls from happier times, the life we'd built that was now just a set design for a play that had ended. "Do you want coffee?" Claire asked. "No, thanks. What did you need to talk about?" She sat down on the couch, twisting her hands together. I sat across from her in the armchair, maintaining distance. "I'm pregnant," she said. The words hung in the air. I'd prepared for many possible conversations, but somehow not this one. My mind went immediately to calculations. When had Claire and I last had sex? 6 weeks before I moved out. No, longer. 8 weeks at least. "Congratulations," I heard myself say. She looked up sharply. "It's yours, Thomas? Is it?" Her face flushed. "Of course it's yours. Who else's would it be?" "I don't know, Claire. You tell me. I haven't been with anyone else. Jesus, Thomas. I know you think I'm a terrible person, but I wouldn't..." "You wouldn't what? Have an affair? We both know that's not true." She stood up, anger finally breaking through her careful composure. "I told you nothing happened with Kyle. Nothing physical. We were just friends. Stop lying." The words came out sharper than I'd intended. I took a breath, forcing calm. "Stop lying. I know about the affair. I've known for months. I just wanted to see if you'd ever tell me the truth." Claire went very still. "You don't know what you're talking about. I know Kyle's been coming here. I know you've been meeting him at hotels. I know about the credit card you opened in my name to buy him gifts. Should I keep going? You've been spying on me? I've been protecting myself. There's a difference." She sat back down, her hands shaking now. "The baby is yours, Thomas. I swear. We can do a paternity test if you want. I do want. In fact, I insist on it. Fine. But you're wrong. You're going to feel terrible when you realize you're wrong." I looked at her carefully. She seemed genuinely convinced, but the timeline didn't make sense. Unless... When did you conceive? Do you know? The doctor said, based on my last period, probably mid-August. Mid-August. I'd been at a medical conference in Chicago from August 10th through August 17th. I'd stayed an extra day to visit museums. I hadn't been home at all during that window. I was out of town mid-August, I said carefully. You were back on the 17th. We had sex that night. No, we hadn't. I'd come home exhausted from travel, taken a shower, and fallen asleep on the couch. Claire had already been in bed when I woke up. Claire, we didn't have sex that night. Yes, we did. You don't remember because you were tired, but we did. She was lying, either to me or to herself. Probably both. Okay, I said. Like I said, we'll do a paternity test. You really think I'd lie about this? About our child? Our child. You keep saying that, but I don't think it is our child. I think it's Kyle's child, and you're panicking because you realize that's a problem. Get out, Claire said, her voice cold. Get out of my house. Gladly. But Claire, this doesn't change anything. We're still getting divorced. And when that paternity test proves what I already know, you're going to have a lot of explaining to do. I left before she could respond. Sat in my car for a few minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to process what had just happened. Claire was pregnant, and she was convinced the baby was mine. But I knew, mathematically, scientifically, with absolute certainty, that it couldn't be. I drove straight to Helena Carver's office. I'd retained her 2 weeks after moving out, after it became clear Claire wasn't going to be reasonable about the divorce. Helena was in her 50s, sharp as a knife, with a reputation for winning cases everyone said were unwinnable. "Thomas," she said when her secretary showed me in. "This is unexpected. We don't have a meeting scheduled, I know. I'm sorry. But something happened. Claire told me she's pregnant." Helena set down her pen. "I see. And the baby isn't mine, but she thinks it is. Or she's trying to convince me it is. How do you know it's not yours?" I explained the timeline, the conference, the lack of any sexual contact during the conception window. Helena listened without interrupting, taking notes. "You can prove you were at the conference? Hotel receipts, flight records, attendance records from the conference. Plus, I presented a paper on the 16th. There are photos, videos. I can prove I wasn't home. And you haven't had sexual contact with your wife since before I moved out. At least 8 to 10 weeks before the conception date." Helena leaned back in her chair, thinking, "Okay, here's what we do. You agree to the paternity test, but you do it through the court. That way it's official, legally binding. No room for her to claim you're manipulating the results. She's going to fight this. She genuinely seems to believe the baby is mine. Then she's either delusional or she's the best liar I've ever seen. Either way, the DNA doesn't lie. When the test proves you're not the father, we use that as leverage in the divorce. Shows a pattern of dishonesty, makes her other claims about you less credible. What if..." I hesitated. "What if somehow I'm wrong? What if there's some explanation I'm not seeing? Then you deal with it." "But Thomas, you came to me because you wanted the truth, right? Not because you wanted me to tell you what you wanted to hear?" "Right. Then let's find the truth. If the baby is yours, we'll figure out next steps. If it's not, we have a very different conversation about how to proceed." I nodded slowly. "Okay. What do I do?" "For now, nothing. Don't respond to Claire's claims about the baby. Don't argue with her. Just wait. She'll either agree to the paternity test voluntarily, or we'll file a motion requesting one as part of the divorce proceedings. And if she refuses, she can't refuse forever. Eventually, we'll get that test. And when we do, we'll know for certain." I left Helena's office feeling slightly more settled. The not knowing had been worse than any answer could be. That night, I got a call from Kyle. I almost didn't answer. Hadn't spoken to him since I'd kicked him out of my bedroom 10 months ago. But curiosity won out. What do you want? I asked. Claire called me. She's upset. She told me about the baby. Good for her. Thomas, man, I know you're angry. I get it. What happened between us, between me and Claire, it was wrong. I'm sorry. Are you calling to apologize or to tell me something else? He was quiet for a moment. She swears the baby is yours. But you're not sure, are you? I don't know. We were careful, but mistakes happen. Is that what you're telling me? I'm telling you that if there's any chance the baby is mine, I want to know. I'll take responsibility. I'll do right by Claire and the kid. How noble of you, sleeping with your best friend's wife and then offering to take responsibility for the consequences. You want a medal? I'm trying to do the right thing here. The right thing would have been not sleeping with my wife in the first place. You're right. You're absolutely right. But I can't undo it now. All I can do is try to make it better going forward. Kyle, I don't care what you do. You and Claire work it out between yourselves. Just leave me out of it. The baby might be yours, Thomas. Claire seems pretty sure. The baby isn't mine. I know that with certainty. What I don't know is whether Claire is lying to herself or lying to both of us. How can you know for certain? I explained the timeline, the same way I'd explained it to Helena. Kyle was quiet when I finished. Shit, he said finally. Yeah, shit. So if you want to be the hero, go ahead. But don't drag me into your mess. I hung up before he could respond. The next few weeks were strange. Claire stopped texting me except for the bare minimum. The investigator reported that Kyle had been to the house twice, but hadn't stayed long either time. Then, 3 weeks after Claire told me about the pregnancy, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Thomas Brennan? Speaking. This is Diane Coleman, Claire's mother. I straightened in my chair. Diane had always been civil to me, but we weren't close. She'd made it clear from the beginning that she thought Claire could have done better. Mrs. Coleman, what can I do for you? I need to talk to you about my daughter, about the baby. Okay. Claire told me you don't think the baby is yours. That's correct. She's convinced that it is. But I've been doing some math, Thomas, and I need to know the truth. Were you home mid-August? No. I was at a conference in Chicago from the 10th through the 17th. I heard her breath catch. Can you prove that? Yes, completely. And you haven't been intimate with Claire since before I moved out, at least 2 months before the conception date. Diane was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was strained. She's been lying to me. About everything, hasn't she? I don't know what she's told you. But if she said the baby is definitely mine, then yes. She's lying. She told me you two were trying to work things out, that you'd been seeing each other, trying to reconcile. She said the baby was a surprise, but that you were happy about it. None of that is true. We haven't been trying to work anything out. We're getting divorced. And there's no way the baby is mine. Diane made a sound that might have been a sob. I'm so sorry, Thomas. I'm so sorry for what my daughter has put you through. It's not your fault. But I raised her. I taught her to value honesty and integrity, and somewhere along the way, she lost both. I don't know how this happened. People make choices, sometimes bad ones. Will you do the paternity test? Yes. As soon as legally possible. Good. Because I need to know the truth too. I need to know who my daughter really is. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment feeling an unexpected sympathy for Diane. She'd believed her daughter, trusted her, and now that trust was crumbling. I knew how that felt. The mediation was scheduled 2 weeks later. That's when Claire made her claims about me being a terrible father. That's when she told a room full of people that I was selfish and incapable of putting anyone else first. And that's when I knew the time had come to stop playing defense and start playing offense. I called Helena from the parking lot after the mediation. She just told everyone I'd be a terrible father. We have it recorded. Perfect. That'll play well when the paternity test proves the baby isn't yours. Makes her look manipulative and dishonest. When do we file? 2 more weeks. I want all our evidence organized. I want every document ready. When we walk into that courtroom, I want the judge to have no doubt about what really happened here. 2 weeks. I can do 2 weeks. Thomas, you're doing the right thing. I know it doesn't always feel that way, but you're protecting yourself, and that matters. Thanks, Helena. 2 more weeks of pretending to be the passive, defeated husband. 2 more weeks of letting Claire and Kyle think they were getting away with everything. 2 more weeks until the truth came out and everyone saw who was really lying. I could wait 2 weeks. I'd already waited this long. The night before we filed, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my small apartment bed, staring at the ceiling, running through everything that was about to happen. By this time tomorrow, Claire would know I'd been documenting everything. By this time tomorrow, our divorce would be out of mediation and into court. By this time tomorrow, there would be no going back. My phone buzzed around 2 a.m. A text from my father. "Can't sleep either, can you?" I'd told my parents everything the day after the mediation session where Claire had claimed I'd be a terrible father. They'd sat in my apartment, shocked and angry, as I'd shown them some of the evidence, the text messages, the credit card statements, the investigators' reports. "Why didn't you tell us sooner?" my mother had asked, tears streaming down her face. Because I needed to be certain. I needed evidence that was unquestionable, and I needed to make sure Claire didn't know I was gathering it. "She's going to be blindsided," my father had said quietly. "Good. She's been blindsiding me for over a year." Now I texted back, "Nope, you? Worried about you. This is going to get ugly." "It's already ugly. Tomorrow it just gets honest. Call me if you need anything. Your mother and I are both up." I called. My father answered on the first ring. "Hey, son." "Hey, Dad. Sorry for keeping you up. You're not keeping us up. We're worried about you. This is a big day tomorrow. I know. Are you sure about this? About going forward?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, once you file those papers, once you present that evidence to a judge, there's no reconciliation, no fixing things. Your marriage is over for good." "Dad, my marriage has been over for more than a year. This just makes it official." "I know. I just needed to ask. Needed to make sure you'd thought it through." "I've thought about nothing else for months." My mother's voice came through, muffled. She must have been on speaker. "Thomas, sweetheart, we just want you to be happy. Whatever that looks like. I'll be happy when this is over. When I'm free of the lies and manipulation. When I can start building a life that's based on truth instead of pretending everything's fine. Then we support you," my father said firmly. 100%. Whatever you need, we're here." We talked for another hour, about nothing important, just parents trying to comfort their son before a difficult day. Eventually, I felt calm enough to try sleeping again. "Thanks," I told them before hanging up, "for believing me, for not thinking I'm crazy or vindictive." "You're not crazy," my mother said. "And you're not vindictive. You're just protecting yourself. That's what any smart person would do." I slept fitfully for a few hours, then woke to my alarm at 6 a.m. Showered, dressed in my best suit, the one I usually saved for important presentations at medical conferences. I wanted to look professional, put together, like someone who knew exactly what he was doing. Helena had scheduled our court filing for 9 a.m. We'd meet at her office first to review everything one final time. I arrived at 7:30. Helena was already there, surrounded by documents. "Morning," she said, looking up. "Coffee's fresh if you want some. I've had about 3 cups already. Any more and I'll vibrate through the floor." She smiled. Nervous? Terrified. What if something goes wrong? What if we missed something? We didn't miss anything. I've been over these documents 50 times. We have proof of the affair, proof of the financial manipulation, proof that she's been lying about the pregnancy. We have her own recorded words claiming you'll be a terrible father. We have your proof that you couldn't have conceived a child with her during the relevant time frame. Thomas, this case is airtight. But what if the judge doesn't believe me? What if they think I'm making it all up? They'd have to think you fabricated thousands of text messages, dozens of credit card statements, hotel records, GPS data from her phone, testimony from the private investigator, and your own travel records. That's not just conspiracy, that's a coordinated effort involving multiple people and institutions. No judge is going to believe that. I nodded, trying to let her confidence seep into me. Now, Helena continued, let's talk about what happens after we file. Claire is going to be served with papers today. She'll probably call you. Don't answer. Let it go to voicemail. She might show up at your apartment or the hospital. Avoid her. All communication goes through me now. What about Kyle? Same thing. No contact. Anything they say to you directly could be used later. Keep everything professional. Keep everything documented. When will the paternity test happen? We've requested an expedited DNA test as part of the filing. Given the circumstances, I expect the judge will order it within days. Results take about a week after samples are collected. And if, hypothetically, the baby somehow is mine? Helena looked at me seriously. Then we adjust our strategy. But Thomas, based on everything you've told me, everything we can prove, there's no reasonable way that baby is yours. So let's not borrow trouble. At 8:30, we gathered all the documents, 3 thick binders of evidence, plus digital copies on multiple flash drives, and drove to the courthouse. It was a gray morning, threatening rain, the kind of weather that matched my mood. We filed at exactly 9 a.m. The clerk took our documents, stamped them with an official seal, and entered them into the system. Just like that, our divorce was no longer a private matter handled through mediation. It was now a public court case with judges and lawyers and legal proceedings. She'll be served by this afternoon, Helena told me as we walked back to her car. Go to work. Act normal. Don't check your phone constantly. Just live your life and let me handle the legal side. What if she shows up at the hospital? Hospital security won't let her onto your floor without clearance. I've already spoken with your supervisor and explained that you're going through a difficult divorce and your estranged wife might try to cause problems. They're prepared. I went to work feeling like I was walking through a dream. None of it seemed real. I saw patients, reviewed charts, discussed cases with colleagues, all while some part of my brain was counting down the hours until Claire would be served. At 2:30 p.m., my phone started buzzing. 12 calls from Claire in 10 minutes. I didn't answer any of them. Then texts started flooding in. What the hell is this? You can't do this to me. Call me right now. You're ruining everything. I'm pregnant with your child and you're doing this? You're a monster. I forwarded all of them to Helena without responding. She replied immediately, perfect. She's panicking. Keep not responding. Let her dig her own grave. More texts came. Then voicemails. Claire's voice getting increasingly hysterical. Thomas, please, we need to talk about this. You can't just file these horrible accusations without even discussing it with me. I know you're angry, but this isn't the way to handle it. Please call me back. Then, I can't believe you're doing this while I'm pregnant. Do you have any idea how stressful this is? You're putting our baby at risk with this stress. Is that what you want? Then, my lawyer said what you're claiming is defamation, that I can sue you for lying about me in court documents. Is that what you want? A long, expensive legal battle? Because I'll fight this, Thomas. I'll fight it until you have nothing left. I saved all the voicemails, sent them to Helena, went back to work. At 5 p.m., I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Thomas Brennan? Speaking. This is Warren Hayes. I'm representing Claire Coleman Brennan in her divorce proceedings. All communication should go through my attorney, Helena Carver. I understand that, but my client is extremely distressed. She's pregnant, and these allegations you've made are causing her significant emotional harm. I'm asking you, as one human being to another, to consider what you're doing here. Mr. Hayes, with all due respect, you should read the evidence I've submitted before making appeals to my humanity. I have read it, and I have to say, it looks very damning. But there are 2 sides to every story. Then present your client's side in court. That's what courts are for. My client wants to speak with you directly. Just the 2 of you. No lawyers present. She thinks if you could just talk. No. All communication goes through attorneys. That's not negotiable. Mr. Brennan, you're making this much harder than it needs to be. I'm making it exactly as hard as it needs to be. Your client lied to me, cheated on me, stole from me, and tried to pass off another man's child as mine. If that seems hard, maybe she should have thought about consequences before acting. I hung up. My hands were shaking. That was the first time I'd said it all out loud to someone other than my lawyer or parents. The first time I'd stated baldly and clearly what Claire had done. It felt good, terrifying, but good. At 6 p.m., my shift ended. I walked to my car carefully, checking the parking lot for Claire's vehicle. She wasn't there. I drove home by a circuitous route, making sure no one was following me. My apartment was empty and quiet. I made dinner, pasta with jarred sauce, nothing fancy, and ate while reading through the court documents Helena had filed. Seeing it all laid out in legal language made it somehow more real and less real simultaneously. Around 8 p.m., someone knocked on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Kyle. I didn't open it. Thomas, I know you're in there. I can hear you moving around. Please, man, just open the door. We need to talk. Go away, Kyle. 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking. 5 minutes to explain. There's nothing to explain. You slept with my wife. End of story. It's more complicated than that. Please, just let me explain. If you don't leave, I'm calling the police. Thomas, I mean it. Leave now. I heard him sigh, then footsteps retreating. I watched through the peephole until he got in his car and drove away. Then I called Helena. Kyle showed up at my apartment. Did you let him in? No. Told him to leave. Good. I'll document this. If he keeps trying to make contact, we can get a restraining order. Is that necessary? Maybe not. But it's good to have options. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Not because everything was resolved, it wasn't, not even close, but because I'd finally stopped pretending, finally stopped acting like everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. The truth was out there now, in court documents, in legal filings, in official records. Claire could spin whatever narrative she wanted to her friends and family, but the truth was documented, time-stamped, undeniable. And soon, when the paternity test came back, that truth would be even clearer. I just had to wait a little longer. The paternity test was scheduled for the following Wednesday, exactly 1 week after we'd filed the divorce petition. The judge had granted our motion for expedited testing, noting in his order that the paternity question is central to the custody and support issues in this case, and should be resolved as quickly as possible. Claire fought it, or rather her lawyer fought it, filing a motion claiming that forcing Claire to undergo genetic testing while pregnant was cruel and potentially dangerous. Helena demolished that argument in a single paragraph, citing medical research showing that non-invasive prenatal paternity tests were completely safe and required only a blood draw from the mother. The judge ordered the test to proceed. I arrived at the testing facility at 9 a.m. on Wednesday. It was a nondescript medical office in a strip mall, the kind of place you'd drive past without noticing. Helena met me in the parking lot. Claire should be here soon. Remember, don't engage with her. Don't speak to her. If she tries to talk to you, walk away. I know. I mean it, Thomas. Anything you say right now could be used against you. Let the DNA speak for itself. We walked inside together. The waiting room had generic art on the walls and outdated magazines on the tables. A receptionist behind glass smiled at us professionally. "Brennan case?" Helena asked. "Yes, we're expecting you. Please have a seat. Ms. Coleman should be here shortly." 10 minutes later, Claire arrived with her lawyer. She looked terrible, pale, thinner than I remembered, dark circles under her eyes. She looked at me, and I saw something in her expression that might have been pleading. I looked away. "Thomas, please," she said, her voice breaking. "Can we just talk for a minute?" Helena stood up. "Ms. Coleman, you know you're not supposed to speak directly to my client. I just want one conversation. That's all. Just him and me, no lawyers. That's not going to happen." Claire's lawyer, Warren Hayes, a middle-aged man with a sympathetic face, put his hand on her arm. "Claire, we discussed this. Let's just get through the test. He won't even look at me, Claire said, and now she was crying. We were married for 6 years. We loved each other, and now he won't even look at me. I kept my gaze fixed on the wall. It took every ounce of willpower I had, but I didn't look at her. The receptionist called my name. I followed a technician back to a small room where she swabbed the inside of my cheek, sealed the sample in a tube, and labeled it carefully. Results should be ready in about 7 days, she told me. They'll be sent directly to the court and both legal teams. 7 days, 168 hours until I had definitive proof that the baby wasn't mine. I could wait 168 hours. When I came back to the waiting room, Claire was gone. Helena was still there, typing on her phone. She had a panic attack, Helena said quietly. They had to take her back early to calm her down before they could do the blood draw. Is she okay? Physically, yes. Emotionally, I don't think she's accepted yet that this is really happening. That's not my problem. No, it's not. But Thomas, try to have some compassion, even for people who hurt us. It makes you a better person than they are. I thought about that on the drive back to work. Did I have compassion for Claire? I'd loved her once, deeply. The kind of love that makes you think about forever. But love can't survive when trust is gone. And Claire had destroyed every bit of trust between us. Still, seeing her so broken in that waiting room had stirred something in me. Not love. That was dead. Not even sympathy exactly. Just a sad recognition that we'd both lost something we'd thought would last forever. The next week crawled by. I worked, came home, worked out at the gym, saw my parents for dinner. Tried to live a normal life while waiting for results that would change everything. Claire called every day. I never answered. She left voicemails that progressed through the stages of grief, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, never quite reaching acceptance. Thomas, this is crazy. We can work this out. We don't need courts and lawyers. Just come talk to me. Then, I can't believe you're doing this. After everything I've done for you, supporting your career, being there for you. This is how you repay me? Then, please, I'm begging you. The stress of this is making me sick. Think about the baby, even if you don't care about me anymore. I saved all the messages. Helena said they showed Claire's instability, her attempts at manipulation. Every piece of evidence mattered. Kyle stopped trying to contact me after that night at my apartment. I heard through mutual friends that he'd moved out of his apartment and was staying with his parents. That the hospital where he worked had started an ethics investigation into his relationship with a married colleague. Apparently someone had filed a complaint. I didn't file that complaint. But I wasn't sorry it existed. 6 days after the test, Helena called me. Results are in. They'll be officially released tomorrow, but the lab gave me a heads up. Are you sitting down? Just tell me. You're not the father. 0 probability of paternity. I'd known that would be the result, had been certain of it, but hearing it confirmed felt like something heavy lifting off my chest. So now what? Now we go to court. The judge will review the results, along with all our other evidence. We'll request full financial disclosure from Claire, accounting for all the money she took. We'll file for reimbursement, and we'll make sure everyone knows she lied about you being a terrible father when you were never going to be the father at all. When? Hearing is scheduled for next Monday, 10 a.m. Be there in your best suit and your best behavior. This is where we win. That night, I allowed myself 1 glass of wine, just one, sitting in my apartment, processing what this meant. Claire had tried to trap me with a baby that wasn't mine, had tried to make me responsible for the consequences of her affair. And she'd almost succeeded. If I'd been more trusting, less careful about the timeline, if I'd just accepted her word that the baby was mine. How many men did accept it? How many men raised children that weren't biologically theirs, never knowing the truth? I wasn't judging those men. If they were happy, if they loved those children, that was enough. But for me, it would have been a foundation of lies, and I'd had enough of lies to last a lifetime. The official results were released the next morning. Within hours, I got a call from Diane, Claire's mother. "Thomas, I'm so sorry. I'm so incredibly sorry. It's not your fault, Mrs. Coleman. She's my daughter. I raised her. And somehow she turned into someone who would do this. I don't understand it. People make choices, sometimes terrible ones. She's devastated. Won't come out of her room. Won't eat. I'm worried about her and the baby." Part of me wanted to say that wasn't my problem. But Diane didn't deserve my anger. She'd been lied to as much as I had. "Make sure she's seeing a doctor. For the pregnancy. Beyond that, I don't know what to tell you. The baby's father. Is it Kyle? I assume so. But that's between them to figure out. He's not answering her calls. Won't talk to her. I think he's scared. He should be. Scared of being a father when he's not ready. Scared of the consequences of his choices. Maybe some fear will make him grow up." Diane sighed. "You're a good man, Thomas. My daughter is a fool for losing you. I was a fool for not seeing who she really was sooner. We see what we want to see, especially in people we love." After we hung up, I sat for a long time thinking about that. We see what we want to see. I'd seen the woman I wanted Claire to be, loyal, honest, true. I'd missed or ignored all the signs that she was something else entirely, but I'd learned. God, had I learned. The weekend before the hearing, my parents took me out to dinner. A nice restaurant, the kind where the servers know wine pairings and the menu doesn't list prices. "This is a celebration," my mother said firmly, "of you standing up for yourself, of you refusing to be manipulated, of you being brave enough to demand the truth. It doesn't feel like a celebration. It feels like a funeral for my marriage. Your marriage died a long time ago," my father said gently. "This is just making it official." We talked about other things. My work, their upcoming vacation, my sister's new job in Boston. Normal family conversation. It felt good to talk about something other than the divorce, other than Claire, other than all the drama. But eventually the conversation came back around. "What happens after the hearing?" my mother asked. "Depends on what the judge orders. But probably Claire has to pay me back for all the money she stole. We split the house proceeds 50-50, or I get more because I can prove I paid more into it. The divorce gets finalized. We both move on with our lives. And you're okay? Really okay? I will be. Once this is all over. Once I don't have to see her or talk about her or think about her anymore. Then I'll be okay. You'll find someone else," my mother said. "Someone who deserves you. Maybe. Someday. But not for a while. I need time to just be myself for a while. Figure out who Thomas Brennan is when he's not trying to be someone's husband." "That's very wise," my father said. Monday morning arrived cold and clear. I wore my best suit, charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, and met Helena outside the courthouse at 9:30. "Ready?" she asked. "As ready as I'll ever be." We walked inside together. The courthouse was busy, people hurrying to various hearings, lawyers conferring with clients, the general chaos of the legal system grinding forward. Our courtroom was on the 3rd floor, small, wood-paneled, with a bench for the judge and tables for the attorneys. Claire was already there with Warren Hayes. She looked worse than she had at the paternity test, thinner, paler, like she hadn't slept in days. She looked up when I entered. Our eyes met for just a second before I looked away. The judge, a woman named Patricia Sutton, in her 60s with sharp eyes, entered at exactly 10 a.m. "Be seated," she said. "I've reviewed the paternity test results and the evidence submitted by both parties. This is a preliminary hearing to determine temporary orders while the divorce proceeds. Mr. Hayes, does your client wish to make a statement?" Warren stood. "Your Honor, my client would like to apologize to the court and to Mr. Brennan. She acknowledges that she was mistaken about the paternity of her child. However, she maintains that the other allegations Mr. Brennan has made regarding an affair, financial impropriety, and defamation are exaggerated or taken out of context." Judge Sutton looked skeptical. "Mistaken about paternity? Mr. Hayes, your client insisted repeatedly that Mr. Brennan was the father. She made this claim during mediation, to family members, and in initial filings with this court. That's not a mistake. That's either dishonesty or profound self-delusion. Your Honor, my client was in denial. Save it for trial, counselor. I've read the evidence Mr. Brennan has submitted. Thousands of text messages between your client and her lover. Credit card statements showing purchases made for said lover. Hotel receipts, GPS data. This isn't taken out of context. This is a pattern of deception. Warren sat down, deflated. Ms. Carver, the judge continued, turning to Helena. What are you seeking in terms of temporary orders? Helena stood. Your Honor, we're seeking several things. First, immediate sale of the marital home with proceeds to be divided according to each party's documented contributions, which will favor Mr. Brennan significantly, as he paid approximately 80% of the mortgage and home improvement costs. Second, restitution for approximately $40,000 that Ms. Coleman took from joint accounts and credit cards opened fraudulently in Mr. Brennan's name. Third, a restraining order preventing Ms. Coleman from contacting Mr. Brennan except through attorneys. Fourth, a declaration that Ms. Coleman's claims during mediation that Mr. Brennan would be an unfit father are now proven to be defamatory, given that Mr. Brennan was never going to be a father to her child in the first place. Judge Sutton nodded slowly. Mr. Hayes, does your client contest any of these requests? Warren stood again. Your Honor, Ms. Coleman is pregnant and unemployed. She cannot afford to pay back $40,000 immediately, nor can she afford to find new housing if the marital home is sold. Perhaps Ms. Coleman should have considered her financial situation before spending $40,000 of her husband's money on her lover, Judge Sutton said dryly. Here's what I'm ordering. The house will be listed for sale immediately. Proceeds will be divided 70-30 in Mr. Brennan's favor, reflecting his greater financial contribution. Ms. Coleman has 60 days to vacate. Regarding the $40,000, Ms. Coleman will pay that back in monthly installments over 5 years, secured by a judgment. If she defaults, we'll garnish wages or take other collection action. The restraining order is granted, no contact except through attorneys. And yes, I'm ordering that the mediation records be sealed and that Ms. Coleman acknowledge in writing that her statements about Mr. Brennan's fitness as a father were baseless, given the paternity results. Your Honor, Warren protested, this is extremely harsh. Harsh, Mr. Hayes, your client committed fraud. She tried to trap her husband into raising another man's child. She defamed him in mediation. She stole $40,000. The only reason I'm not referring this to the district attorney for criminal charges is that Mr. Brennan hasn't requested it. Yet. Don't make me regret that mercy. Claire was crying silently. I felt a weird mix of satisfaction and sadness. This was what I'd wanted. Justice, vindication, proof that I wasn't crazy or paranoid. But seeing Claire completely broken gave me no joy. This hearing is adjourned, Judge Sutton said. Final divorce hearing will be scheduled for 60 days from now. Both parties should be prepared to present a complete financial accounting at that time. She banged her gavel and left. The courtroom emptied slowly. Claire and Warren sat at their table, having a whispered conversation. Helena and I gathered our materials. That went well, Helena said quietly. Better than I expected, actually. Judge Sutton doesn't suffer fools, and she clearly thinks your wife is a fool. Ex-wife. Almost ex-wife. Almost ex-wife, Helena corrected with a small smile. As we walked out, Claire called after me. Thomas, please, can we just... No contact, Miss Coleman, Helena said firmly. You heard the judge. Anything you need to say goes through your attorney. Claire sank back into her chair, sobbing. Warren put a comforting hand on her shoulder. I walked out without looking back. In the parking lot, I took a deep breath of cold air. It was done. The hard part was done. Now it was just waiting for the house to sell, waiting for the final divorce hearing, waiting for this chapter of my life to close completely. How do you feel? Helena asked. Like I can breathe again. For the first time in over a year, I feel like I can actually breathe. That's good. That's what justice should feel like. I drove back to work in a daze, saw patients, reviewed labs, did all the normal things, but some part of me felt lighter, unburdened. That evening, I got a text from Kyle's number. "I'm sorry. For all of it. You deserved better." I almost didn't respond, but after a moment, I typed back, "Yes, I did. Take care of your kid. Be the father I never got to be. I will, I promise." I blocked his number after that. Some bridges needed to burn completely. The house sold in 3 weeks, a bidding war between two families who both loved the neighborhood. We got $15,000 over asking price. My share, after paying off the remaining mortgage and agent fees, came to almost $200,000. Blood money, in a way, but also justice. Claire moved into an apartment near her mother. I heard through the grapevine that Kyle had finally stepped up, was going to counseling with her, was preparing to be a father. Good for him, good for the baby. I felt nothing about it. No anger, no jealousy, no satisfaction, just nothing. The final divorce hearing was quick. Judge Sutton asked if we'd reached an agreement on all terms. We had. She signed the dissolution order, and just like that, 6 years of marriage were over. "Good luck, Mr. Brennan," she said as we left her courtroom. "I hope your next relationship is with someone who deserves your trust." "Thank you, Your Honor. I hope so too." 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I moved into a new apartment. Not the small, temporary one I'd been living in, but a real place. 2 bedrooms, hardwood floors, a balcony overlooking a park. A place that felt like a home instead of just a waiting room. I bought new furniture. Nothing from the old house. Nothing that carried memories of Claire. Everything fresh, everything mine. It felt symbolic, a clean start. My parents helped me move in, along with my sister Hannah, who'd flown in from Boston for the weekend. "This is great, Tom," Hannah said, looking around. "Really great. It feels like you. What does that mean?" "Clean, organized, calm. No drama." She paused. "How are you doing?" "Really? I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. I feel like I got my life back." "Have you thought about dating?" "Hannah," my mother warned. "What?" "It's a reasonable question. He's divorced, he's handsome, he's a doctor. Women would line up if he gave them a chance." "I'm not ready for that yet," I said. "Maybe not for a long time. I need to figure out who I am when I'm not reacting to Claire's chaos." "Fair enough. But don't wait too long. You deserve to be happy." I did deserve to be happy. That was something I was still learning to believe. For so long, I'd felt like I needed to earn happiness. Through perfect behavior, through sacrificing my needs, through making Claire happy first. Now I was learning that happiness was something I could just have, without justification, without permission. It was strange and uncomfortable and also liberating. Work became my anchor. I threw myself into patient care, into teaching residents, into research projects I'd been putting off. I was good at being a doctor. That was something Claire's betrayal couldn't touch. One afternoon, I was reviewing charts when my supervisor, Dr. Angela Price, knocked on my office door. "Got a minute?" she asked. "Sure. Come in." She sat down, looking at me carefully. I wanted to check in. "See how you're doing. I know the past year has been rough. I'm managing. Thank you for asking. Thomas, you're one of our best physicians. Your patients love you. Your colleagues respect you. But I've noticed you've been working a lot of extra shifts, volunteering for every weekend call. I'm worried you're using work to avoid processing what happened." She wasn't wrong. Maybe a little, I admitted. But work helps. It gives me purpose. It reminds me I'm good at something. You're good at a lot of things, but you can't hide in this hospital forever. Eventually, you need to build a life outside these walls. I know. I'm working on it. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're treading water, waiting for something to change instead of making it change. I thought about that for a long time. What do you suggest? Take a vacation, a real one. Go somewhere you've never been. Do something just because it sounds fun. Remember what it feels like to be spontaneous. I'm not a spontaneous person. You used to be, before you got married. I remember you telling me about backpacking through Europe during med school, about deciding to spend 3 months volunteering in Guatemala on a whim. What happened to that guy? He got married, got responsible, grew up, or got beaten down. There's a difference. She left me with that thought. That night I pulled out old photo albums from before Claire. Pictures of me in Europe, sunburned and smiling. Pictures from Guatemala, working in a rural clinic, looking exhausted but happy. Pictures of a version of Thomas Brennan who didn't second-guess everything, who trusted his instincts, who believed the world was generally good. I missed that guy. So I booked a trip. 2 weeks in New Zealand, starting in a month. Hiking, exploring, doing whatever I felt like doing. No schedule, no obligations, just freedom. You're really doing this? My mother asked when I told her. I'm really doing it. Dr. Price was right. I need to remember how to live instead of just survive. I think that's wonderful, sweetheart. Your father and I will check on your apartment while you're gone. The month passed quickly. Work stayed busy. I had dinner with my parents once a week, with Hannah over video chat. Started going to a gym regularly, not obsessively, just taking care of myself. And then, 2 weeks before my trip, I ran into Claire. It was completely random. We were at the same coffee shop, and I turned around from the counter with my drink just as she was walking in. We nearly collided. Thomas, she said, freezing. Claire. She looked different. Her pregnancy was showing now. She was maybe 6 months along. She looked healthier than the last time I'd seen her, less gaunt, almost peaceful. How are you? She asked. Fine. You? Good. Better. Therapy helps. We stood there awkwardly. Other customers moved around us, but we were stuck in this weird bubble of shared history. I owe you an apology, Claire said finally. A real one, not through lawyers. I'm sorry for everything I did. For lying, for cheating, for trying to manipulate you, for making you doubt yourself. You didn't deserve any of that. I didn't know what to say. I'd imagined this conversation 1,000 times. But now that it was happening, all my prepared speeches evaporated. Thank you, I said finally. That means something. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that I know what I did was wrong, and I'm working on being better, for myself and for my daughter. Daughter? She smiled slightly, touching her stomach. Yeah. Kyle and I found out last week. We're having a girl. Congratulations. We're not together. Kyle and I. We tried, but it didn't work. Turns out we're better as co-parents than as a couple. But he's stepping up. He's going to be a good dad. That's good. The baby deserves that. Another awkward pause. You look good, Claire said. Happier than I've seen you in a long time. I am happier. Turns out divorce was the best thing that could have happened to me. She flinched slightly but nodded. I'm glad. Really. You deserve to be happy. So do you. I hope you find it. Thanks, Thomas. For everything. Even for not letting me get away with my lies. I needed that reality check. She left before I could respond. I watched her walk out, one hand on her belly, and felt nothing. No anger, no pain, no lingering attachment. Just a mild acknowledgement that she'd been part of my life once, and now wasn't. That felt like healing. 2 weeks later, I boarded a plane to Auckland. The flight was long, but I didn't mind. I read, watched movies, slept. When I landed, I felt like I'd shed something heavy somewhere over the Pacific Ocean. New Zealand was beautiful, mountains and fjords and sheep everywhere. I hiked the Milford Track, kayaked in Abel Tasman, explored caves that glowed with bioluminescent worms. I met other travelers, shared meals and stories, remembered what it felt like to connect with people without suspicion or guardedness. One night, I was at a hostel in Queenstown, sitting around a fire pit with a group of backpackers from various countries. A woman from Canada, Lauren, 32, taking a year off from her engineering job to travel, asked about my story. Divorced, I said simply, taking some time to figure out who I am now. Good for you, she said. Too many people stay in situations that make them miserable because they're afraid of change. I was afraid. But staying was more terrifying than leaving. We talked for hours. About travel, work, families, dreams. It was easy in a way that talking to Claire never had been. No performance, no reading between lines, just honest conversation. Lauren and I spent the next 3 days together, hiking, exploring, sitting in cafes. On my last night in Queenstown, we kissed. Nothing more, just a kiss that tasted like possibility. If you ever come to Vancouver, she said, look me up. I will. I probably wouldn't. But it was nice to know I could. Nice to know that I was capable of connection still, of feeling attraction without fear. When I returned home, I felt fundamentally different. Lighter. More myself. Dr. Price noticed immediately. There he is. The guy I remember from 10 years ago. What do you mean? The sparkle's back. The sense that you're engaged with life instead of just enduring it. Whatever happened in New Zealand, it worked. I remembered who I was before I let someone else define me. That's what happened. Work continued. Life continued. I started saying yes to things. Dinner with colleagues, hiking trips with friends from residency, a book club my neighbor invited me to. Small things that felt big because I was choosing them for myself, not because someone expected me to. 6 months after New Zealand, I got a message through LinkedIn from Caroline Parker, a woman I'd briefly dated in medical school before I met Claire. We'd stayed friendly but distant, the way you do with exes who ended things amicably. Saw you're divorced, she wrote. Sorry to hear that. But also, would you want to grab coffee sometime? Just as friends. I've missed our conversations. We met at a bookstore cafe. Caroline looked great. She'd finished her pediatrics residency and was working at a children's hospital across town. We talked about work, about life, about everything we'd experienced in the decades since we'd dated. Can I ask what happened? Caroline said eventually. With your marriage, I told her. Not all the details, but enough. The affair, the lies, the baby that wasn't mine. Jesus, Caroline said. I'm so sorry. That's awful. It was. But I got through it. Came out stronger, I think. You definitely seem stronger. More grounded. The Thomas I knew in med school was always a little bit trying to prove himself. You don't seem like that anymore. Because I'm not. I know who I am now. I know what I'm worth. No one gets to tell me otherwise. We kept meeting for coffee, then dinner, then weekend hikes. It was easy and comfortable and slow. Neither of us was rushing toward anything. We were just enjoying each other's company. Is this dating? Caroline asked one day, laughing. Because I honestly can't tell. I think so. If you want it to be. I think I do. But Thomas, I need you to know, I'm not Claire. I'm not going to lie to you or manipulate you. If something's wrong, I'll tell you. If I'm unhappy, I'll say so. I believe in honesty, even when it's hard. That's all I want. Honesty, respect, partnership between equals. If you can give me that, I'll give you the same. Deal. We'd been officially dating for 3 months when I took her to meet my parents. My mother was cautiously optimistic. She seems lovely, she said while Caroline was helping my father with dishes. But are you sure you're ready for this? It hasn't been that long since the divorce. It's been almost 2 years, Mom. And Caroline isn't a rebound. She's someone I knew before Claire, someone I've always respected. We're taking it slow, making sure we're on the same page about everything. It feels right. Then I'm happy for you. Just promise me you'll be careful. You deserve someone who treats you well. I know I do. That's the difference between now and then. I know what I deserve, and I won't settle for less. Caroline and I didn't rush into anything. We dated for a year before she moved into my apartment. We talked about everything. Money, careers, family, what we wanted from life. We agreed to keep separate bank accounts, to split expenses fairly, to never use money as a weapon or control.